All right, so in this segment, we're going to be looking at this particular part of the 501 Sec Plus course, objective being given a scenario, troubleshoot common security issues. The one we're looking at here is dealing with permissions. From the basics, permissions are basically dealing with those minimum requirements, the whole least privileged idea behind allowing users or objects uh, access to different areas within a network or a device, a host. And this could be referring to files, folders, objects themselves, users, and groups. Also, dealing with modifying the default configurations idea to maybe making it less of an issue dealing with permissions themselves. Proper user education training is always going to be top of the list when you're talking about permissions and users and best practices. As far as administrators go for dealing with these types of security issues with permissions, it's always going to involve constant reviews and audits. That's a lot of these things we're going to be looking at here in these upcoming slides. Layered security is really talking about where we find these levels dealing with some common areas to troubleshoot, especially dealing with permissions or anything else as far as that goes. Defense in depth is something we're looking at to help troubleshoot security issues with permissions that we find in data, the files, applications, hosts themselves, your internal network, the outside or the perimeter network, physical facilities. Now, there's sometimes permission issues dealing with physical access to, let's say, a building. And then obviously you're going to have these layers of security that's going to be kind of helping you diagnose exactly maybe particular users or organizations or groups. And something else we look at here for excuse me, the permission issues is the shares. What are they allowed to do? Once a user is given access, what can they do with that access? Share permissions a lot of times will be based off of that level, such as can they actually read parts of the file or folder or directory? Do they have full permissions? That's read, write, and execute. And there's different properties within there, especially like a Windows environment. You have the whole NTFS properties. That's going to be sort of a set of controls based off of users and maybe part of their groups, especially if you're talking about privileged users, admin accounts. So audits should really undergo permissions, dealing with the views that kind of help determine if they're adhering to these principles of least privilege. Some accounts accumulate too many permissions over time. That's what we may have probably read about dealing with permissions creep. So recertification can help you identify unnecessary permissions so that you can modify the account to be more in line with, let's say, a user or resource and what they actually require. And also you're going to have maybe possibilities of these access control models, is what you see at the bottom here. DAC, MAC, RBAC, and ABAC. DAC is the discretionary access control. Now these all eventually do tie back to permissions. Discretionary being at the discretion of the owner, the creator of that file or folder or directory. Mandatory access control, dealing with some high level of, let's say, security labels or classifications. RBAC, whether it's going to be dealing with a role-based or role-based. And ABAC, the attribute-based access control. So that really can at times apply these other models inside of it. So those two may actually help you identify certain permission issues. Accounts themselves, once again, get it back to the beginning foundation of like when accounts are created. When you create an account, you should hopefully be associating those accounts with at least privilege, what the users are going to be able to use it for based off of a position. So users sometimes don't have enough permissions, or they may have too many permissions, allowing them to get into areas where they shouldn't have access to. So the overall idea here is design user permissions that adhere to that principle of least privilege, ensure users in the proper groups that provide appropriate level of read and or write access, and ensure those resource objects are supporting the relevant permission based off the users, especially if that's being applied to privileged users. No special accounts, only should be utilizing those, no shared accounts. When an employee is gone after they leave or are terminated, make sure those credentials are revoked and disable the account. This too is going to be applying back to permission issues, can help you troubleshoot dealing with the user accounts themselves. Security audits is also something here that's going to be applicable for when we're actually dealing with permissions. So in addition to auditing permissions, you should also be able to monitor how a user account or how their accounts are actually being utilized in a company or an organization. This can help you spot privilege escalation attacks, for example, or maybe even alert to a certain sort of behavior that a particular account should not be engaging in just by going through the logs and auditing that. If an account is being used, let's say during odd hours, or maybe they're used from unknown sources, this could be something that can help indicate that account is being misused or possibly even hijacked, being taken over by somebody else. So look for those unusual activities or unreported incidents by routine audits. Review those user and administrator activities based off of network policies. Review the use permissions, potential unauthorized access. Review device configurations, should encapsulate the whole hardening idea. And review installed applications, hopefully meeting that security baseline. And these are also one area we can kind of help troubleshoot some of these permission issues. And then lastly is going to be dealing with our log review. Now we find logs in all of your devices, components, whether they're part of a network or even standalones, those hosts, they're also going to be generating these system logs. It's going to be recording their activities along with a timestamp. For example, what I'm giving you here is a Windows Event Viewer. If you've ever gone in there, you're going to see multiple types of logs that are being generated within that device, the host. That's the information warning and error logs. Each one's going to be specific. Or you could have a system with a software implementation and a pre-existing server, for example, that may have what we're seeing here is a SIEM type of a software implementation of a centrally logged environment. Those types of logs are going to be dealing with security information and events. So the cool thing about this, you can grab all these security information event logs from all these different machines on a network and grab them into a centrally located area. And that could also be coming from end-user devices, not just servers, and also other network equipment. And then audit logs. Audit logs will be there as a recording environment for events within a system, an IT system. It's also going to have timestamps. Most of these logs will have a form of a timestamp, but it also is going to be showing those resources that were accessed. And it's also going to be referring to user logs and their permissions, when they logged in, how they logged in. So this is once again another area you can kind of utilize to kind of help you troubleshoot permission issues when we're looking at techniques and technologies.